Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the SportzMoose Media Podcast for the week. Ricky Dean along with Rick Burkett, and I got my buddy Shuggy at my feet tonight. Maybe we can keep him from barking tonight, Rick. And that'll be the goal for this podcast is to keep Shuggy off the air. He wants to chime in every now and then. That's right. He wants to put in his 2 cents, no doubt. But, yeah, Shuggy's my little buddy, and he's at my feet right now. He'll be okay as long as I continue to rub him on the head for the entire time. Anyway, we're going to talk about high school football as it went down this past week. And, boy, did we have some great games to cover. We had a game in the FHSAA, the Florida High School Athletic Association, with the Northview Chiefs taking on the Bozeman Bucks from Panama City, Bozeman. Rick and I made a trip down to Panama City on Friday night, did that game on the air, and it was an incredible football game. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. And we're also going to talk about the Alabama Independent School Association, the AISA, state championship games that went on. And they had 8-man football and 1A through 3A football games that were, the seasons are over now. Everybody's done. We've crowned the state champions in all 4 of those classifications, and we'll talk about those here in just a minute as well. And not only that, hey, we're in, we're in the semifinals of the 7A classification in the state of Alabama, the Alabama High School Athletic Association games, and then the rest of the games, 6A or the rest of the classification, 6A down to 1A, they've all got not semifinals but quarterfinals that are coming up. So a lot of football left to be played. We've still got, this is the 3rd week, so still in 6A through 1A, you've got 3 games left. In Class 7A, you've got 2 games left, and so it's going to be exciting as we've got some really good football left to be played. But first, Rick, let's talk about the game that we had on Friday night. And I'll tell you one thing: we went down, really didn't have know what to expect when we went down to cover Northview and Bozeman, because Northview had kind of a lackluster season, but you and I had talked about it. One thing about Northview had played quite a few games out of classification, and so even though their record going into this game Friday night was 4-6, Northview proved to be very competitive and a better football team than I believe even the Bozeman Bucks gave them credit for. Man, what a ball game that was Friday night.
Well, it sure was, and we covered Northview and state line brawl with Muscatine County High School in Atmore earlier this year, and they played a much larger and a very good Atmore team very well, and so we were pretty impressed when we watched them then. And even in that game, they were hardly penalized at all. Played good, solid football. Of course, we know they got a good coach, and so we thought, as we were talked about during the week before the game and on the drive down to Bozeman, which is in the Sand Hills Lakes community right there north of Lynn Haven, Panama City area, and that they had a shot, even though Bozeman was undefeated. And shoot, even after we got there, and the Bozeman people were so nice in that community right there to us as soon as we got to the game. But even they knew they might be in for a tussle because we were on their side up on top of the press box. And I think you said it during the broadcast, my friend, it was just one of the best, if not the best games that you and I have covered in the last 5 years, So it was a great game. It was when we said that, a privilege to call the game.
Yeah, Northview, the thing about Northview is the coaching staff of the Chiefs, Coach Wes Summerford and his coaching staff, dude, they had a game plan of game plans, and they executed very well up until the very last, and I mean the last play of the game practically. Northview was ahead during the whole ball game, jumped out to a 7-0 lead. Bozeman scored next, missed the extra point. It was 7-6. Northview scored 17 points in the second quarter. Bozeman scored a touchdown, went for 2. So, at the half it was 24-14. And so the the Chiefs were up. They were up by 10. And then, they just, some trickery by Bozeman. Of course, the thing is that, that pays a lot of respect right there to what Bozeman was going through with the Chiefs, because, they didn't come out and just run the ball over the top of Northview. They didn't just drive the ball down the field. They had to go to the bag of tricks in order, a flea flicker and things like that in order to score. But unfortunately, Northview was just unable to match their scoring in the first half there in the second half, as they only scored 7 points in the third quarter for a total of 31. And then, the play, we've talked about it. The play of plays. It was about a 55-yard Hail Mary, a bomb to a kid that had to make a catch, and the ball was on target. The pass was there. The kid dove, made a diving catch of a football into the end zone, and scored to put, because it was 31-31 at the time. And so that put Bozeman ahead 37-31 with 6.5 seconds to go in the ball game. That ball game was a battle from the opening kick all the way till that 6.5 second touchdown pass that Bozeman scored. So, to say all that to say this, Northview, fans of Northview ball players and coaching staff, dude, y'all just be proud of what you accomplished the other night. I know it's hard to say, well, we're proud that we lost, but no, you be proud because of the way you represented your school, yourselves, and your community, because that was one of the best high school football games I've ever seen in my life.
Well, it was, and we covered state championship games, and they were really good, and went to lots of other ones, and of course, we're both old as dirt, so we've been around football all our lives, and that was just a privilege to be there. And I can't get over, like I said, how nice those people were to us, and of course, we're the Northview fans. We're on their side, and they're certainly. And that gets said a lot after football games and athletic events sometimes. You guys hold your heads high, and it may be cliche, but in this case, I've never seen it, been more appropriate than to say that. That was the kind of game that I think Northview can springboard themselves into next year. They got to extend their season by a couple of weeks, which they get 2 extra weeks of practice, to get ready for the non-seniors, get ready for next year, and they just got a lot to build off of. And I think you could just really watch out for the Northview Chiefs in the 2024 football season, because sometimes a demoralizing loss like that can hurt you. But I don't see how that game could do anything but help them for next year. And of course, they in their own right have a fine school and a fine venue to play football in, and that they're a great school with a lot of great tradition too. So, good job to the Northview Chiefs on a very fine season, really.
Yeah, I'm partial to the folks down there around Walnut Hill and Bratt and everything anyway, because I spend a lot of time down there during the spring and summer, umpiring baseball in their summer league with their summer leagues and everything like that, the youth league baseball down there. And so they're just good folks, and they've always treated me like I was, right there from the neighborhood, and I just appreciate them, and just to go down and see their team and their kids perform, because all these kids that perform for the Chiefs on Friday night, that's the aspiration of all these younger Chiefs that I watch during the summer. That's their aspiration. One day these kids are going to be the ones that are out there, ripping and roaring on a Friday night and representing their school and their community the way they do. And so, it does my heart good to be a part of what they have built down there, and they just continue to just do well. And with all that being said, let's also say this: good luck to Bozeman, because Bozeman, they've got a game coming up this week. It's not the state championship game. I believe this is the regional final that'll be coming up, and so good luck to Bozeman. As I believe they're battling Holmes County coming up, and they'll host Holmes County at home this week. So that'll be a game that they will have down there, and we'll just pay attention and hopefully we'll. Because those Bozeman people, they were, Rick, you're absolutely right. They were just good folks. They treated us very well.
Right. Yeah, I don't root against anybody usually. I'm not going to say I've never done it, but I usually just pull for a team. I don't usually pull against somebody. And when I know some folks down there in Holmes County too, but I'm pulling for those Bozeman folks. I mean, I hope they go ahead and just win it all. They're undefeated. They've already played Holmes once, I believe, and beat them during the regular season. So I'm not sure about that, though. But you could correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I'll be pulling for the Bozeman Bucks.
Well, let's talk about the Alabama Independent School Association, the AISA. This past Thursday, on November the 16th, they crowned state champions in the AISA. And if we look, of course, the first game we're going to kind of go into, the 8-man state championship game. Never seen an 8-man football game. I told you I wanted to see one, just didn't get the opportunity this year to go see it. But I'm putting that on my bucket list, is to see 8-man football played somewhere, somehow. And so the Cornerstone Christian team, they won. They beat Springwood by a score. Hung a lot of points on them. 66-18 was the final score there. So congratulations going out to Cornerstone Christian, as they are basically crowned the 8-man football champion of the AISA in the year 2023. Congratulations going out to Lowndes Academy, as they played, our guys from right over here at Wilcox. Man, I was really pulling for Wilcox. Not that I was pulling against Lowndes, but I'm just close to the folks over there at Wilcox Academy, because I've been over there a time or two and refereed, umpired some baseball primarily, and done some stuff over there. And I always like those folks over there. They always treat me very well. But Lowndes Academy was just too much for Wilcox in Class 1A. The final score there, Lowndes Academy 20 and Wilcox Academy 7. Rick, you had an opportunity to see this game. So what did you see in that one?
Well, I mean, Wilcox, as we said, they could hold their heads high. They played a good football game. It was close throughout the game. Both of them play just pound it, ground pound football, where they just run a lot. And it was a close game, defensive game for the most part, but they accounted themselves well. And congratulations, Lowndes Academy. It's not far over to Lounsboro from Camden, so they all know each other pretty well. So it was a good game.
In a game Wilcox, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and Wilcox accounted themselves well. It was a good football game. It was the closest of the three that I watched.
Yeah, that's where I was going next, is in the Class 2A playoff game, the state championship game that was held, by the way, at Crampton Bowl in Montgomery. All of these games were held up at the beautiful Crampton Bowl in Montgomery. Of course, they host, I believe it's the Camellia Bowl there in Montgomery that they have each year in the month of December, the college bowl game that happens there. Well, the Class 2A playoff game, our friends at Chambers Academy, we've been up to Chambers Academy a time or two, and I want to tell you one thing. From where we live here in South Alabama, there's no easy way to get to Chambers Academy. It is a haul. But once you get up there, man, you talk about a place that's just loaded with football tradition, and they do it right, and they're just super nice folks. They treat us pretty good, and we just appreciate them up there. We've gone up there a time or two with the Scambia Academy playing in the playoff games and stuff like that. Chambers just proved to be too much for Banks Academy. Banks Academy out of the Birmingham area, Chambers Academy out of the Lafayette, Alabama area, and Chambers Academy just too much, as they put it on Banks by a score of 41-14.
Yeah, it was a pretty close game in the first half, and Yeah, we talk about that a lot. It came out in the game we covered the other night. Who's going to make the best halftime adjustments? Chambers threw a few little wrinkles in on their offense coming out. In the second half, they had the trap plays work, the little counter traps set up perfectly in the second half. It's almost like they saved them a little bit for the second half, and they just pulled away from Banks in the second half. And congratulations, Chambers. It's a great school, a lot of tradition up there in Lafayette, Alabama, and they just kind of pulled away. But Banks had a great season too. So that's the best season Banks has had since their inception as an AISA school a few years ago. So it was a good game, but Chambers Academy was too much for almost everybody. The only team that beat Chambers Academy this year was the first game of the season. Lee Scott beat them 13-7 in the first game of the year. And I'm not sure Lee Scott, who wound up being the 3A champions, could even beat Chambers at this point. And in my opinion, Chambers is the best team in the state in AISA.
Well, and you mentioned that game. Of course, the final game of the day up there in a day that was slam full of football. Now, 4 football games in one day. They started at 10 o'clock in the morning, and this 3A game started at 7 o'clock that night at the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery. It was Lee Scott Academy being victorious over Glenwood, which, I really thought Glenwood, in looking at Glenwood's schedule and the way they played throughout the year, I thought Glenwood may have been the favorite in this game, but Lee Scott proved to be too much for them as Lee Scott picks up a 10-point win over Glenwood. We've been to Glenwood before as well. It's amazing that I looked over this list of schools and stuff that are in this in the AISA and everything, and of course with us following Escambia Academy the way we did for those several years, I've been just about everywhere that there is, and I've been a lot of places in the Alabama High School Athletic Association to do ball games and stuff like that, but I have never done a game from Lee Scott. But Lee Scott up in the Auburn-Opelika area, Lee County, they just did a wonderful job this year, and they ended up beating Glenwood by a final score of 24-14 to win that Class 3A state championship.
Yeah, and although the score is relatively closely, I actually thought Glenwood might have a chance to beat them, but Lee Scott never trailed. I don't believe, and they're both very good football teams, running multiple set offenses, running sophisticated defenses. Both of these schools leap to the Alabama High School Athletic Association next year, and just as we saw with Pike Liberal Arts and with Tuscaloosa Academy and Faith Academy and Mobile Christian, all former AISA schools, I think you're going to see Lee Scott and Glenwood be very successful in the Alabama High School Athletic Association. It usually takes a year or two for a little adjustment to take place, and then of course we already know that private schools are penalized 1.5 students. So you basically have to play up 2 levels bigger than the size of their student body. But Lee Scott had the game from beginning to end on that one. It was a good football game and a good job by Glenwood, but I don't think Lee Scott was ever in danger of losing that football game.
All right, so now let's go to the Alabama High School Athletic Association playoffs. We'll start tonight in Class 1A, and we'll look at the 1A scores. Of course, games played this past Friday night. You and I kind of had a place in our heart for Georgiana, and Georgiana, they just bit off a little too much as they had to play Leroy at Leroy. The Leroy Bears ended up victorious by a score of 27-13, so Leroy advances to the next round. Leroy will take on in this next round, which will basically be the quarterfinals. Leroy will take on Brantley as Brantley beat Lochapoka by a score. Man, you talk about a good ball game. The Brantley-Lochapoka game 14-12, Brantley with a win at home to make the advancement to the next round. Now, Leroy will have to get on the cheese wagon and ride to Brantley. So they'll go over there and play at Brantley. So that'll be the next game. The quarterfinal game in Class 1A will be Brantley and Leroy. Now, if you look at the other South bracket, Sweetwater, who is always a pretty good football team, Sweetwater had to go play Maplesville at Maplesville, the Red Devils up there, and the Red Devils just a little bit too much. You talk about a wild place to play. Maplesville's just all about their football and baseball up there. They love those Red Devils around the Maplesville community. That score, Maplesville 28, Sweetwater 21, so Maplesville advances. And then down at the bottom, Elba, we talked about Elba, and Milry had a good year. The only game Milry had lost all year was to Leroy, and that was the final game of the regular season. Milry had made it through the first round of the playoffs, but then they had to get on Elba. And Elba was a little too much for them. Elba wins the game by a score of 47-28. So on the south side, you're going to have Maplesville hosting Elba. Elba will go up there. That'll be a good one. So you've got Leroy Brantley. Yeah, you got Leroy Brantley and then Maplesville Elba. That's on the south side of the bracket.
Yeah, that whole thing now. Brantley beating Lochapoka. I didn't expect that. Lochapoka was the number 1 seed and had destroyed everybody they played. It just goes to show you what we always talk about. You can never tell when you get into these playoffs. So that was kind of an upset there. Of course, we knew that Sweetwater and Maplesville was going to be a battle, two closely matched teams. And Milry accounted for themselves well because Elba has destroyed everybody they played all year long. And then, we root for Georgiana because they're pretty close up the road. They're from us up I-65, just a little ways up in Butler County. But they gave a very good Leroy team a good game, too. So, but you got two really good games coming up this week. I wouldn't mind going to one of those. I know we can't. I've got commitments myself this weekend, but I'd love to go to that Maplesville Elba game.
Yeah, that certainly would be a good one. Let's go to the north side of the bracket now as we look at your winners there. Coosa Christian beat Lynn by a score of 28-6, so Coosa Christian will advance. Hackleburg played Valley Head. Hackleburg 33, Valley Head 18, so Hackleburg will advance. And then in the other game, Pickens County played Winterboro in a very good game. Pickens County ended up winning that game by a score of 32-29. And then in the other game, it was Wadley against South Lamar. Now, this score, I had to blink twice when I read this score, and we'll talk about it here. Wadley hangs 81 points on South Lamar and beat them 81-27. So, wow. That's all I can say about that. So now your next round games, your quarterfinal games on the north side of the bracket are going to be Coosa Christian hosting Hackleburg. That game will be one of the two games left. And then the other game will be Pickens County hosting Wadley. So those will be your quarterfinal games in Class 1A.
Yeah, 81 points. I mean, I don't even know how you do that. It doesn't seem like there's enough time in the ball game. And then really, South Lamar scored 27 points. But, Pickens County sounds like they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see how in the world you score it. You got 12-minute quarters. How are you scoring 81 points in 12-minute quarters?
And the other team scores 27. It's sort of like one of your sayings, it's like basketball on grass.
No doubt. So as we continue to look at games, let's go into Class 2A in the in the Alabama High School Athletic Association. It was Goshen and Clark County playing each other. Clark County, we've talked about Clark County all year. Clark County victorious 22-15 over Goshen, so Clark County advances. B.B. Comer, they were the host team against Highland Home. B.B. Comer beat Highland Home 21-14, so B.B. Comer will advance. Reeltown played Thorsby. Reeltown was just too much for Thorsby. They win that game 48-14. And then the last game on the south side of the bracket was Isabella, the host team, against Cottonwood. Cottonwood on the road emerges victorious by 1 point, 24-23. So your two games, your quarterfinal games that are left in Class 2A football out of the south side of the bracket will be Clark County. They will be at home in Grove Hill. They will take on B.B. Comer on Friday night, and Cottonwood will be at home against Reeltown. So those are your two south side games in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and we'll be, of course, we're close to them. I mean, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump over to Grove Hill and Clark County, and I've always kind of had a soft spot for them anyhow. And I think their regular season record was like 5-5, but when you looked at their 5 losses, and we knew as they got toward the back end of their schedule there that they were going to be really good. So Clark County is proven to be the tough nut that we thought they would be. So, but good luck to all the teams.
Yeah, they definitely played up, did Clark County. So now let's go to the north side of the bracket, Tuscaloosa Academy. We've been talking about them as well, coming from the AISA. They've only been playing Alabama High School Athletic Association ball for a couple of years. It was Tuscaloosa Academy beating Southeastern by a score of 38-6. And Tanner just got run all over by Pisgah. Pisgah beat Tanner 66-38 in their game, and so Pisgah will advance. Fife was the host team. They played Lexington at home, and they won that game by a score of 57-24. So big points scored in that ball game as well. And Locust Fork got all over Sulligent by a score of 54-21. So your two games that are left this weekend, this Friday night, in the quarterfinals of the Class 2A playoffs in the state of Alabama will be Pisgah taking on Tuscaloosa Academy. Pisgah will be the home team, and you've got Fife at home. They will take on Locust Fork, and that's on the north side of the bracket in Class 2A.
Yeah, that's I don't know who to pick out of that bracket. I know the Fife Red Devils, they got a lot of tradition there, and but so does some of these other schools like Locust Fork. It's been a while, but they're going to be a tough nut too. And of course, Tuscaloosa Academy, and as you said, we've covered them before, and they got a nice facility up there, and making a long run into the Alabama High School Athletic Association playoffs, to have only been in them for a couple of years.
Let's go now to Class 3A. As the playoffs looming there, the second round games were this past week. The second round games, Mobile Christian played Houston Academy, got all over them by a score of 35-10. So Mobile Christian advances as we figured they would. We expect them to keep advancing straight to the state championship unless something strange happens. The Flomaton Hurricanes played Trinity. They played Trinity at home in Flomaton this past week. Trinity just proved to be too much for Flomaton as Trinity comes up with a big win, 35-0 over the Hurricanes. St. James, a team that we saw last year in the playoffs, they played Randolph County, the team that we saw W.S. Neal lose to in the first round of the playoffs. St. James got all over Randolph County, beat them 41-6, and that was kind of surprising to me because Randolph County was a really good football team. And in the other game, Strawn played Thomasville. Of course, we've seen Thomasville as well. Thomasville, a very good football team, and proved just too much for Strawn as they beat them 33-21. So your quarterfinal games in Class 3A this weekend, Mobile Christian has to get on the buses. They have to head to Trinity to play. That game will be Friday night. And then St. James will make the trip to that beautiful facility at Thomasville, and they will play there. So that's going to be a war right there between St. James and Thomasville. That would be a good game to catch as well.
Yeah, it would be. Like I said, if I didn't have something to do, maybe I could try talking into going to one of these, but I won't be able to. We've got the powwow going on this week, Thanksgiving, so I won't be able to get up there. But I'd love to go watch that Thomasville St. James game, and I think St. James is going to have their hands full with that bunch from Thomasville. As far as Mobile Christian goes, it's like you and I said, if they just miss their chance if they don't do it this year to get that state championship that's been eluding them for a while, because they have a great team every year since they switched over to the Alabama High School Athletic Association back in 2007 or 2008, I think. And they won state championships in the AISA, and they've gotten to a state championship in the AHA, but they're going to miss their chance. They don't do it this year. I haven't seen anybody that could play with them so far.
Let's move over to the north side of the bracket now and look at games that were played there. Speaking of basketball on grass, Geraldine and Gordo. Gordo was the host team. Geraldine ends up beating Gordo in their game on Friday night. That score was Geraldine 42, Gordo 34, so a lot of points scored there. Another really big point accumulation game. Lauderdale County took on Piedmont. You know, we're familiar with Piedmont, and Lauderdale County beat Piedmont by a score of 35-30 in a very close ball game, but a lot of points scored there. Madison Academy is always a good football team, and this is more of a traditional football looking score as they took on Mars Hill. Mars Hill had to go to Madison Academy. The final score there was Madison Academy 21, Mars Hill 14, and then Sylvania took on Winfield. Sylvania ends up victorious there as they beat Winfield by a score of 35-10. So your quarterfinal games on the north side of the Class 3A bracket will be Geraldine traveling to Lauderdale County. That game will be Friday night at 7 o'clock. And then you've got Sylvania. They will travel to Madison Academy and play up there. So that'll be your north side bracket on the in the quarterfinals of the Class 3A playoffs in the Alabama High School Athletic Association.
Yeah, some good games on that side, and good luck to all of them.
As we continue to moving up this week, as we look at these teams that are playing, we're moving up in classifications, and now we're at the 4A group. And so let's talk about the 4A group. The Jackson Aggies, we know that they're a good football team. Jackson hosted Andalusia. Andalusia was a good football team, but Jackson just too much for them on Friday night as Jackson hosted Andalusia and beat them 31-7 there in Aggieland in the city of Jackson. Booker T. Washington got all over Hanley, and Hanley was a good football team. Booker T. Washington beats Hanley by a score of 22-9 in another game that was on the south side of the bracket in Class 4A, looking at Bibb County. Bibb County took on Jacksonville, and Bibb County was the host team. Jacksonville had to go there. Jacksonville emerges victorious by a score of 28-21, so Jacksonville advances, and you've got Catholic of Montgomery. They took on the T.R. Miller Tigers. T.R. Miller had to go to Catholic in Montgomery, and they fall short by 10 points. Catholic beat T.R. Miller by a score of 24-14. T.R. Miller had a good year. They're always a good football team, just fell a little short this time. So in the games in the quarterfinals, the games that are left, Booker T. Washington will be at home. They will host Jackson. That ought to be a good football team. And I tell you, Booker T. Washington, I don't know much about you, but I do know with Jackson coming to town, you better strap your helmet on tight. I do know this too, that Jacksonville's a good football team, and but Catholic of Montgomery will be on the road and go to Jacksonville. That'll be a good game there. That's your south games in Class 4A.
Yeah, and I'll say the same about Jackson as about Mobile Christian. I don't think they've had a close game this year. I mean, Jackson is clicking on all cylinders. Of course, that's a tough Booker T. Washington team they're going to play, but good luck to the Aggies.
As we look at the north side of the bracket in Class 4A, Brooks got all over Priceville the other night. Well, I say got all over them. They scored a bunch of points as well, but Brooks scored 70. So Brooks scored 70, Priceville scored 42, so Brooks will advance. Westminster Christian played Deschler, and they come out on top. A very close game. 39-35 was the final, so Westminster Christian will advance in that game. In the other two games on the north side of the bracket, you got West Morgan took on Corner, and Corner got beat by West Morgan 35-14. And then if you look at Cherokee County from way up in the north part of the state, Cherokee County played Haleyville. Cherokee County was a winner there 49-14. So games that are left in the quarterfinals in Class 4A football in the north side of the bracket. Brooks will be at home again this week. They will host Westminster Christian, and West Morgan will be at home this week. They get to host Cherokee County, as Cherokee County will make the trip there to West Morgan. That's your games on the north side of the bracket in the quarterfinals of Class 4A.
Yeah, that Cherokee County team's good. They've been good all year. That's who'd be my pick. Yeah, that score between Priceville and Brooks, 70-42. You know, we're seeing a lot more of those scores every year. I mean, it's sort of what you said about your pet peeves about kicking games and things like that. The way we grew up, the way you practice is you worked on your kicking games first, your defense second, and your offense third. And some of these scores are ridiculous. And one of the games earlier, Hanley beat St. Michael's 68-38. And you're not just seeing it in high school; you're seeing it in colleges too. But I'm just not a big fan of it. But I like that Cherokee County team. I think they play old school football, and that's going to be my pick coming out of the north.
Yeah, we've always talked about that. The thing we like about football is we like the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust. No leather helmets. Let's go back to leather helmets with no face mask, and let's just line up and run over the top of each other. That would make football a lot more entertaining to me.
I'd vote for it. I made a post years ago. I said defense. It's a character thing. I like the linebacker for Alabama looked across at Penn State's quarterback in the '78 Sugar Bowl and said, "Hey, it's 4th down and inches. You better pass."
That's right.
You know what I mean? That's the kind of mentality I like. I don't like all this. Oh, let's just let them score and then we'll score when we get the ball back. That's a cop out kind of attitude, and I don't want to talk badly about anybody. And it's not just them; it's just lots of teams, and it just seems like when you're on defense, you just have to dig a little deeper sometimes and play with some heart and discipline. Some of these scores are crazy.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to get used to. Let's move now into Class 5A. The Class 5A playoffs that are left, of course, games that were played this past Friday night. Gulf Shores took on Charles Henderson of Troy. Gulf Shores, we know Gulf Shores is good. Gulf Shores won that game big by a score of 41-0, as Charles Henderson was unable to find the end zone in that ball game. UMS Wright, they played Headland, and UMS Wright's season ended. Coach Terry Curtis and his bunch they're a young football team. And I've heard a lot of people talk about, that even though UMS Wright didn't make it any further in the playoffs than they did, that this may be one of Coach Terry Curtis's best coaching jobs, just getting this team as far along in the playoffs as they got. The final score there was Headland 35 and UMS Wright 21. BC Rain, their season ends as they took on Demopolis. We were really pulling for BC Rain just because this was new territory for them. But Demopolis is old hat in the playoffs, and Demopolis scored a very, it was a close win, but it was a win. Demopolis beat BC Rain at home, Demopolis 13, BC Rain 6. And then Eufaula played Faith Academy. I know you've got a place in your heart for Faith Academy because that's where all the Burkett youngsters went to school and graduated from. And, of course, Faith Academy just not enough for Eufaula this year, as Eufaula beat them the other night by a score of 41-14.
Yeah, and it was a good year for Faith. They've got a legendary coach in Jack French. He's just a great, fine Christian man. It's more important to him for his players to play in a Christian environment than it is to win a football game, because their ultimate destinations. He's more worried about that than where he finishes a football game. And I just love to see those kind of schools do well in that way, because it's a very disciplined school, just a great place. That's why our children went to school there. So it was a great season for Faith, and they'll rebound next year.
So if we look at the south side of the bracket, coming up this week in the quarterfinal games, Gulf Shores has to go on the road. They will travel to Headland to take on Headland in that game. And in the other game, it'll be Demopolis taking on Eufaula. Demopolis will be at home, so Eufaula will have to make the trip across the state of Alabama to play Demopolis. So that'll be the other game on the south side of the bracket. If we look at the north side of the bracket, Ramsey played Leeds the other night. It was Ramsey 42, Leeds 7. In the other game, it was Russellville taking on Moody. Moody victorious in that one by a score of 42-21. John Carroll played Gunnersville. I got kinfolks up there around Gunnersville, so I pull for them anyway. As a matter of fact, I don't know whether I've ever told you this story or not, but there's a school up there in right there around the Gunnersville area, and it's called New Hope School, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they're the New Hope Indians. Well, the New Hope Indians play at a stadium called Jack Mitchell Stadium, and that is my uncle Jack Mitchell. He was the head football coach there at New Hope way back in the early 70s. Matter of fact, was credited with starting the football program back up at New Hope High School. And Jack Mitchell, my Uncle Jack, was married to my grandfather's sister, and the stadium there at New Hope High School named after Uncle Jack. So I just threw that out there because we were in the neighborhood. I don't know, that anybody
well, I know
really
that
cares.
the Keel side of your family is from that Grant area and that Guntersville area up there. So.
Oh yeah, there's keels running all over the place up there, and as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I would like to do is just go up there sometime soon and visit and just see a lot of the old home place and everything up there. So anyway,
we need to make that trip sometime. Of course, we're both hillbillies. So
well,
we'll fit right in right up there.
We're hillbillies and we like to fish. I've heard there may be a lake up there. I'm not sure, but yeah, that would be a good place to go and go up there and do that. But anyway, getting back to the game, Guntersville played John Carroll. They beat John Carroll 20-17. So Guntersville will advance. And in the other game, Boaz played Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove got all over Boaz at their place, beat them 49-7. So Pleasant Grove advances. So your quarterfinal games in Class 5A are going to be Ramsey taking on Moody, and then Guntersville will take on Pleasant Grove. Moody will be at home, Guntersville will be at home in those two games respectively, and so that'll be your quarterfinal games, Class 5A. So good luck to all those schools. That's on the north side of the bracket in Class 5A. Let's go and look at the next group up, which will be the next will be 6A. And so your 6A games from the area down here, and we've jokingly said all year long the University of Saraland is wearing people out. Well, guess what? They're still wearing people out. Saraland beat Briarwood the other night. Briarwood was at home. Saraland had to go on the road and beat them 51-14 at their own place. And then Hillcrest Tuscaloosa was at home. They hosted Helena, and Hillcrest Tuscaloosa beat Helena by a score of 42-7. So Hillcrest Tuscaloosa advances. Hillcrest Tuscaloosa has got a very good football team as well. Looking, Benjamin Russell played Hueytown. Benjamin Russell beat Hueytown by 20. 47-27. So Benjamin Russell advances, and then Pike Road played Spanish Fort, and they ended Spanish Fort's season. It was Pike Road 31, Spanish Fort 17. So with Pike Road beating Spanish Fort, Pike Road's got a good football team as well. So your quarterfinal games, big quarterfinal game, this would be you talk about wanting to go to a game, Rick. This one's right there on I-65 at Saraland. Saraland will be at home this week against Hillcrest Tuscaloosa in that quarterfinal game in Class 6A, and then Benjamin Russell will host Pike Road. So Benjamin Russell will be at home in the other game in the South bracket. Looking at the north side of the bracket, Parker played Oxford. Oxford's season ended as Parker beat them 21-14, so Parker advances. Gadsden City beat Hartselle by a score of 22-15, so Gadsden City will advance. In the other game, down below that, Muscle Shoals. I hear they play some pretty good music up in that area around Muscle Shoals. They've got the sound studios and everything up there. 41-10 was Muscle Shoals over Fort Payne. Of course, hey, you got all the music going on at Muscle Shoals, and then you got Fort Payne, where the band Alabama's from. So that was kind of a musical contest there, if you think about it that way. That's just the way.
A musical rivalry.
Yeah, that's just the way my mind works sometimes. And then you've got Clay Chalkville beat Mountain Brook by a score of good ball game here. Clay Chalkville 17 and Mountain Brook 13. So if we look at the quarterfinals left in the Class 6A group, you've got Parker at home against Gadsden City, and then Muscle Shoals will be at home. They will take on Clay Chalkville. So those are those games that will be played in Class 6A coming up this weekend.
Yeah, there's a lot of good games there. I think Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, and know a lot of people around that area. From what I understand, that's a really good team too. So Saraland might face their toughest foe so far. Nobody's even come close to Saraland this year. Sort of like we were saying about the Jackson Aggies earlier. So, but they may be tested this coming weekend.
Well, now we move into Class 7A. This is the last groupings here that we will have and we will talk about. Of course, the way the playoffs work, Class 7A, they're now in the semifinals, because what will happen is they will play these games this week, and then they will get kind of an extended break, as they will take 10 days off and play on Wednesday, not of the next week, but they will play on Wednesday 10 days away from when these games will be played on Friday night.
December 6th.
That's right. That's just the way they. It's just the way they do things in 7A, and because they have one less round of playoffs than they do in the other classifications in the state of Alabama. So let's look at those games. Central Phoenix City, they've got a very good football team. Auburn made the trip down to Central Phoenix City to play them this past week. It was Central Phoenix City 49 and Auburn 21. Central Phoenix City, a very good football team in Class 7A. And then you had Mary Montgomery. Mary Montgomery's season continues. These guys are playing great football, and it is just a thrill to be able to see them do this. The Vikings, I mean, I've got kin people in Mobile that they've been a part of Mary G. Montgomery High School. My two nieces that belong to my sister, and then I had a cousin way back in the day. I'm talking about the 1979-80 season when I played football. I had a cousin that actually played. She was a very pretty blonde, and her name was Vanessa, and she played in the band at Mary G. Montgomery High School. And so I've got an affiliation with Mary G. Montgomery through the years. Mary G. Montgomery picked up a win the other night against Enterprise in a very good game, 13-10. So Mary Montgomery advances. It'll be Mary Montgomery having to get on the bus and travel to Central Phoenix City, so a long trip for them, but the winner of that game will advance to the state championship game. And if we look over at the north side of the bracket, Hewitt Trussville took on Hoover. and Hewitt-Trussville got all over Hoover by a score of 40-7, which is kind of unusual. I'm used to seeing Hoover from years past, going all the way back to when Coach Russ Prost was at Hoover. Hoover's always been a winner, but they fall a little short this season as Hewitt-Trussville beats them and advances. And then, of course, we've got a buddy of ours right from Atmore, Alabama, Coach Chris Walker, who has been a part of the Thompson. I think Thompson's about the only school he's ever worked at, if I'm not mistaken. He started his teaching career there and coaching career there and is still there teaching. I'm not sure whether Chris is still involved on the coaching side. Did a lot of baseball coaching and was was really a great baseball coach, was a great college baseball player at the University of Montevallo, and actually got drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies and played some minor league ball. But Chris is up there at Thompson, and he's got some great stories to tell, especially when Tua and his brother were there at Thomasville. You'll have to sit down with Chris sometimes and talk about the folks that move in there. Of course, people accuse Thompson of basically being a staging ground for Coach Nick Saban and the University of Alabama. I'm not sure whether that's true or not, but they certainly got a couple of pretty decent quarterbacks to move all the way from the state of Hawaii, and they ended up at the University of Alabama from Thompson High School. I'm just saying. But anyway,
they roll tide.
No doubt. But anyway, Thompson picked up the win as they beat Vestavia Hills the other night by a score of 34-14. Thompson's got the little young quarterback. I think that kid last year was an 8th grader. He may just be a freshman. Yeah, I think he's a freshman. A freshman starting quarterback in Class 7A football, and he is a beast. And so anyway, that's going to be a good ball game. But the semifinal there is going to be Thompson taking on Hewitt-Trussville. That game will be played in Alabaster at Thompson. The winner of that game goes to the 7A state championship game that will be played on Wednesday night, December 6th, up in Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa.
Well, good luck to all of them, but we're used to seeing. I mean, that Central Phoenix City team, they're just a powerhouse year in, year out. Same with Hewitt-Trussville, same with Thompson. But the Cinderella in all 7 of the brackets, if the one Cinderella that's still going, the Cinderella story that's still in there is Mary Montgomery, and my cousins went to Mary Montgomery also. So all the Lowe girls, the last name Lowe. So they all went there, and one of them's daughter just graduated from their CC. So I'll be pulling for the Vikings, and what a storybook season they've had. But that Central Phoenix City team, man, they're redonkulous.
They're definitely a good bunch. But I'll be pulling for the Vikings on Friday night. Not anything against Central Phoenix City, but I just have a kinship with Mary G. Montgomery, with the folks that I know that graduated from there and everything. So that'll be a lot of fun to pay attention to that game. And you never know. Hey, maybe the Cinderella slipper, maybe the shoe fits on Friday night, and they'll get on Central Phoenix City, and they'll get to go to the ball, and the ball will be to play either Thompson or Hewitt-Trussville for a state championship game.
There you go. That's right.
Well, Rick, that takes us to the end there, buddy. We have gone through everything that we've got left, and of course we've got some high school football left. So we'll be back again next week talking high school football as the playoffs continue. Of course, we'll have a state championship game to talk about, but in Class 7A, and then we will have semifinal games to talk about in the other 6 classifications. So a lot of stuff going on. We're so proud that you guys are tuning in to us, and we want you to continue to do so as we put this podcast out for you guys. It's our joy to do it, but we do it for football fans just like us, because Rick and I have talked about this thing, and we don't want this thing to be full of a bunch of, I'm not going to try to make out like I'm smarter than your average coach or anything else like that. The only thing we're just a couple of good old boys that enjoy high school football, and we want to talk about it. We want to share our joy of the game with you, and we get to do it each and every week, and it's a great way to share it the way we're doing it right here.
That's right. privilege, and I enjoy doing it. And just a couple of old friends talking football.
And here's the thing is we're out of games to do for the year, so we're going to have to figure out some other way to occupy our time, and hopefully we'll be able to get into a little SportzMoose. We've got SportzMoose Media. We're going to get into a little SportzMoose Outdoors and start talking some hunting and fishing here before long, as this football season kind of dwindles down and slows down. So that's coming in the way. So keep us tuned in for that. And Rick, it's been an honor, buddy. I tell you one thing, just being able to work with you all year long, doing high school football on a Friday night, and discussing the games and just breaking them down and just going and watching. You and I have been friends all our lives, and it's been a lot of fun. And I look forward to doing it again next year.
Same here, buddy, and I appreciate the good Lord allowing us to do it. I guess our broadcasting for football is over for the year, but I really enjoyed it, and you're a fine person and a good Christian gentleman to deal with, and I appreciate it.
Well, I do, thank you, and y'all folks. Tune in next week as we continue this. We call it the SportzMoose Media Podcast, and it is available anywhere you want to pick up your podcasts.